So I just got back into religion. Actually, maybe back into it isn't exactly accurate. Like, I was always somewhat religious, but I never frequented church. Never really thought about God until someone brought it up, and I didn't read the Bible. But I was recently brought back into the light and went to church for the first time in many years. I was sick like a week ago, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds like booty cheeks, but I went to church for the first time in years and I was inspired. It didn't even feel like church. It wasn't the normal one I usually went to. There was singing and dancing, and it literally felt like a concert. I found myself unironically bobbing my head to songs about Jesus. It was crazy. Church bops over Drizzy any day. I was late too, so I didn't even get to experience the full concert. Anyway, after the service, I went and bought a Bible, because why not? If I'm going to improve my relationship with God, I gotta read this book made thousands of years ago. That's just how it is. So I've started reading it a little, and it's actually more fun to read than I was led to believe. There's some fire stories in here, okay? They're short, sweet, have a good message, and there's a lot of likable characters. I searched up what the top 3 stories of the New Testament was, and there were a lot of them, but for some reason, these 3 showed up a lot, so I decided to read them. The Good Samaritan, the Prodigal Son, and obviously the whole, like, resurrection of Jesus. Blah, 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 blah. That's what the whole faith is about. So the Good Samaritan is essentially Jesus just telling this guy about a man that got beaten and robbed without his consent, by the way. And a bunch of people passed him, not helping him whatsoever, including a priest, which is crazy because it just goes to show that even a guy that's allegedly deep in his faith might not even follow it. But this random guy ends up helping him, bandaging him, taking him to an inn on his ass. That's donkey, by the way. And he's nursed back to health. And I think the guy even paid him too. Good guy. I didn't know this, but I think this is where the term Good Samaritan originated from. That's pretty cool. And then there's the prodigal son. A father of 2 splits his assets to his 2 sons. The older one stays and the younger one sets out to live life. I believe he sleeps with a bunch of people, lives life lavishly, and loses all the money. Sucks, man. He starts starving to death, so he has no choice but to come crawling back to his dad. The guilt was killing him. He's like, how can my father ever let me back into his life after all the terrible stuff I did? But to his surprise, his dad gives him a big smooch and throws him a feast. Forgiveness is so powerful. And I think all of us can use a little more forgiveness in our life, you know? I could see how the story meant a lot to people. The older brother got hella jealous too. He's all like, man, you killed the big cow for him and not for me? That's crazy. But his father reminded him that the reason why the feast was hosted in the first place isn't because he deserved it per se. It's more so he's just happy that his son is back and he forgives him. Good stuff, man. And then there's the classic Jesus is betrayed. L. Judas, by the way, arrested and then sentenced to be crucified, and then rose once again on the 3rd day. There isn't a single passage in the Bible that summarizes the whole event. I think it's like a story that is touched on in all the books, but that's basically what happens, right? I think this is where a lot of people have trouble believing, because you can't resurrect after death. That's preposterous. Well, first off, you're not Jesus. You're not him, little bro. Secondly, that's what faith is all about, you know? Even though I've never seen it with my own eyes, I believe it. I believe there's a God up there looking after all of us. I believe that Jesus died for our sins. I believe that this book isn't just a crazy fictitious novel. It's something that gives a lot of people hope. It gives you something to believe in. It gives you a reason to just be a good person. And it gives you something to look forward to after the big sleep. W church, W Bible, 10 out of 10 would do it again. The next day he took out 2 denarii, don't know what that is, and gave them to the